The miracle doctor won't be a kept man. My heart belongs ashore. Chapter 891. Was it your doing? Erin Murphy reacted angrily, questioning Kiran York. Hearing Erin's suspicion, Kiran couldn't help but laugh as if he were looking at a fool. Do you think I'm that crazy? Erin, provoked by Kiran's words, rolled her eyes, left speechless. Your father's body rotting right after his death. Does that seem normal to you? Kiran questioned her logically. Erin calmed down completely, her face showing signs of puzzled contemplation. Kiran stared at Erin coldly and said, I strongly suspect that if this continues, your entire Murphy family won't meet a good end. Erin shook her head violently, retreating as she denied, No, absolutely not. My father said our family would not only become strong, but also be untouchable. But what's the reality? Your father is dead, and so is your brother. Kiran's relentless questioning was like a bucket of cold water, snapping Erin to clarity. Indeed, both were dead, and in such miserable ways. History has repeatedly shown that working for the Sunland people leads to a bad end. Don't you know that? Kiran continued. Erin remained silent, but her mental state was close to breaking. You can keep holding out and not tell me about Lady Meiji, but I warn you, you might not have much time left yourself. Are you planning to kill me? Erin asked warily. Kiran shook his head. Of course, I won't kill you. Erin sighed in relief. But you need to beware of Lady Meiji killing you to silence you. Only by eliminating the Murphy family can her secrets stay hidden. Erin's face changed dramatically. Kiran's words made Erin fall into deep thought. Seeing her changing expressions, Kiran had an idea and said, Your father sent you abroad all these years, probably to keep you away from home so you wouldn't die with the family, right? What? Erin exclaimed, looking at Kiran in shock, clearly never having considered this. Your family has no direct descendants left. Dale Murphy isn't even a blood relative, Kiran said coldly. If your father truly believed the Murphy family would become incredibly powerful, why wouldn't he want a biological grandson? Why wouldn't he have you bear a child for the family? Erin was bewildered. She felt like an onion being peeled layer by Kiran, with each layer revealing a painful truth. She had never considered these questions before. Kiran's questions now hit her like a wake-up call. Are you saying that while Lady Meiji gave our family benefits, she also put us in a life-or-death situation? Erin asked tentatively. What do you think? Is there such a thing as a free lunch in this world? Kiran sneered. Erin fell silent, deep in thought. Kiran didn't push her further, waiting for her response. After a long silence, Erin finally looked up at Kiran and tentatively asked, If that's the case, does it mean our family's fate was sealed long ago? What do you think? Kiran replied, then said mercilessly, Maybe Lady Meiji killed your brother. Impossible, Erin shouted, but her face had already turned ashen. You know the truth deep down. Otherwise, why didn't your father seek revenge after your brother died? Remember, he died in Sunland, where Lady Meiji resides. If the powerful Lady Meiji wanted to save your brother, what could have stopped her? Kiran's pointed question left Erin in shock, like a storm had hit her. Indeed, the godlike image of Lady Meiji in her mind was crumbling. Kiran continued, If you tell me Lady Meiji's secret now, I might be able to save your family. Save our family? Erin repeated, her eyes showing a bleak sense of disbelief, still distrustful given Kiran had killed her father. You and Dale Murphy are the only ones left in your family. If you don't save yourselves, you might face death, Kiran pressured, hoping to break Erin's resolve. Erin fell into deep silence and contemplation. Yvonne and Joshua remained quiet, just listening. Joshua felt like he was listening to a story, completely absorbed. After a long time, Erin finally mustered the courage to look at Kiran. Kiran suddenly moved quickly, lunging towards Erin. Erin froze as Kiran fired several silver needles into the air. Clang, clang, clang! The sound of metal clashing filled the air. Erin felt herself being lifted. Looking down, she saw Kiran holding her as he quickly jumped out of the grand hall. A scream echoed from the grand hall. Yvonne and Joshua followed, rushing out. Erin, shocked, asked Kiran, What happened? Someone is trying to kill you to silence you, Kiran replied. Erin's face was filled with terror, unable to comprehend. Then she saw a shocking scene. 2 small Buddha statues, which Byron had kicked over, flew out. One was covered in silver needles, oozing a red liquid like blood. The remaining statue looked hideously twisted and charged towards Kiran and the others. Erin was terrified, frozen with fear. I want to see how strong your mental control is, Kiran shouted, clenching his fists and swinging them at the statues. Bang, bang! Kiran's fists collided with the statues, making a loud noise like hitting iron pillars. The statues didn't shatter. Instead, they laughed mockingly like living beings. Hearing this eerie laughter, Erin felt as if death itself was laughing at her, turning her face pale and making her body feel like ice. Joshua was so scared he wet his pants and sat on the ground. The statues continued to laugh and attacked Kiran fiercely. Kiran fought back, but his punches were unable to break the statues. Yvonne, standing nearby, was anxious but couldn't help. Kiran fought the statues like battling two people. The statues were as hard as the toughest metal. Even though Kiran could shatter the floor tiles, he couldn't damage them. Half an hour passed and Kiran was drenched in sweat while the statues remained unscathed. "Kiran, we should leave. Something is wrong here," Yvonne shouted. Kiran also noticed the strangeness, more difficult than dealing with Chi Gang. "You all go first. I'll catch up." Yvonne didn't hesitate, pulling Joshua and Erin down the mountain. The statues went berserk, trying to chase them. Kiran blocked their path. "Erin Murphy dies or you die," one statue said coldly, laughing. Chapter 892. Erin Murphy was terrified upon hearing that her life was at stake. Her legs went weak and she fell to the ground with a thud. Yvonne Quinn pulled her up roughly and shouted, "If you want to live, then run. Stop dawdling." Regaining her composure, Erin scrambled to her feet. Joshua Carter, though initially tense, quickly regained some composure as well. As a man, he managed to stay relatively calm after the initial shock. He stepped forward to help Erin and urged her to run faster. The three of them hurriedly descended the mountain, leaving Kiran York behind. Kiran was locked in a fierce battle with the two Buddha statues, unable to gain the upper hand. His eyes frequently darted to the statue's eyes, which, like Chi Gang's, emitted a fearsome glow that could instill inexplicable terror. Seething with rage, Kiran leapt into the air. Thud! Kiran landed a kick on one of the statue's heads, causing a crack and tilting it to the side. He prepared to jump again to finish the job, but the statue's head slowly returned to its original position. Kiran couldn't help but swallow nervously, feeling an indescribable fear and confusion. "You either die now or come to Saintess Mountain in Sunland." The Buddha statues suddenly halted their attack, and Lady Meiji's voice echoed in Kiran's ear. "Are you Lady Meiji?" Kiran asked urgently. "Who I am doesn't matter. What matters is that you must come. Otherwise, Aoki Kozner will die," Lady Meiji's voice responded. Hearing Aoki's name, Kiran's expression turned icy. "I don't care who you are, I will kill you." Lady Meiji laughed. "You have spirit and bravado, I admire that. But you should consider Aoki Kozner's fate first. Anyone who dares to harm her will suffer a terrible fate," Kiran said, his voice cold and imposing. "You can't even defeat my remotely controlled statues." "How do you plan to protect her?" Lady Meiji's voice taunted. Kiran gritted his teeth, his fists clenched tightly. "I can control you in your dreams. What makes you think you can defy me?" Lady Meiji's voice continued to echo in his mind. Kiran's brow furrowed, feeling a mix of humiliation and despair. "You are indeed remarkable for your age, and I admire your skills." Lady Meiji paused before continuing. "But unfortunately, you have crossed someone you shouldn't have." "Do you want to kill me for them?" Kiran asked, calming himself. He felt that the voice-in did not seem to want to kill him. If she really wanted to kill him, she could completely control the two Buddha statues and exhaust Kiran to death. "You're smart enough to think of that." "You are smart to think that," Lady Meiji seemed to read his thoughts. "I am too lonely and need a man to accompany me," she continued. "When you fought the Ninja Association in Sunland, I took a deep interest in you and have been waiting for you ever since." Kiran's expression changed several times. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to come here and train your dragon soul power with me. Together we can aim to transcend," Lady Meiji said. Kiran couldn't help but laugh coldly. "Do you think I would believe such nonsense?" "Believe it or not, that's your choice, but let me tell you something clearly." "What is it?" "From now on, I will haunt you. If you don't come to Saintess Mountain within 3 months, you will die from exhaustion." "You think I will be afraid?" Kiran asked coldly. "Don't forget, you should make sure your women are well settled. You might never get the chance to see them again," Lady Meiji warned. "I will come to kill you," Kiran vowed. "Then do your best. I eagerly await your arrival." Lady Meiji laughed joyfully, her voice fading away. Kiran's face twisted with anger. "You don't need to worry about Aoki Kozner's life for the next 3 months," Lady Meiji added. "But after 3 months, both she and her unborn child might die." Kiran's tightly clenched fists cracked audibly. "Are you worried about Aoki Kozner and her child's safety?" Lady Meiji's voice was full of smug satisfaction. "To me, the lives of anyone in this world are insignificant." After a pause, she continued, "Aoki Kozner is Liam Murphy's daughter." "What did you say?" Despite suspecting it, Kiran was still shocked to hear it confirmed. "Byron Murphy sent Liam to serve me at Saintess Mountain." On a whim, I gave him a chance, which resulted in Aoki Kozner. You slept with Liam Murphy and then killed him, Kiran asked, utterly shocked. Liam was insignificant. Why keep him alive? Lady Meiji replied casually, as if other people's lives meant nothing to her. You are ruthless, Kiran said through gritted teeth. If you let Aoki Kozner die without helping her, aren't you just as ruthless? Lady Meiji countered. I will save Aoki Kozner, Kiran declared firmly. I want to know who her mother is. Do you suspect it's me? Lady Meiji laughed. Liam Murphy was too insignificant to move my heart. I just assigned a random woman from my side. Kiran sighed in relief, feeling a weight lifted. If Aoki were Lady Meiji's daughter, it would be truly absurd. Stop thinking about it. I told you so much today to make you understand that you must come to Sunland. You can't avoid it. For the next month you will have peace. But if you don't come to Sunland after that, you will find no peace, even in your dreams. I will make you like them. As Lady Meiji's voice faded, the two Buddha statues that had been fighting Kiran made cracking sounds and shattered into countless fragments before turning to powder and vanishing into the air. Meet me at the foot of Saintis Mountain in Sunland. We won't leave until we see each other. Lady Meiji's voice echoed with seductive charm. Kiran, I will see you. Her voice disappeared. Kiran stood there as if waking from a nightmare. He knew he couldn't refuse Lady Meiji's summons. Yet for some reason he felt an overwhelming sense of awe towards her, as if she were a deity. Clenching his fists, Kiran said coldly, I will definitely kill you. Chapter 893. In Kiran York's car, Erin Murphy was still trembling with fear. Kiran sat in the driver's seat, while Yvonne Quinn sat in the front passenger seat. However, the car hadn't started yet. Kiran kept turning his head to look at Erin. After alternating between crying and laughing, Erin finally looked at Kiran with a complex expression and said, My father once told me that when he was in Sunland. He was severely injured and left at the foot of Saintis Mountain. Kiran and Yvonne exchanged a glance, both filled with anticipation, hoping Erin would reveal more information. Kiran didn't mention the 3-month agreement with Lady Meiji, only saying he had destroyed the two Buddha statues. He was on the brink of death when a woman in white like a celestial fairy appeared before him. Erin continued, pausing to look at Kiran. When my father spoke of this, he seemed to be deeply immersed in his memories. He even remarked that Lady Meiji was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. Kiran nodded. Though he hadn't seen Lady Meiji, he remembered the fake Snow Xander he saw in his dream, who was indeed breathtakingly beautiful. Lady Meiji saved him and gave him a martial arts manual, instructing him to practice at the foot of Saintis Mountain, Erin said, her eyes reflecting her own memories. I tried practicing that martial art, but for some reason, what I learned was entirely different from what my father learned. What kind of martial art was it? Kiran asked. It had no name, just some moves. But as soon as I glanced at it, my father caught me and took it away, eventually burning it, Erin explained. Did your current martial arts skills come from practicing that? Kiran asked, curious. Erin nodded. Yes, I secretly practiced some of it for self-defense. Kiran thought back to Erin's earlier attempts at fighting. Her skills were rudimentary and couldn't compare to Erin Murphy's level. He remained silent, waiting for Erin to continue. Over 20 years ago, my father suddenly called my brother and me together, saying he wanted to send someone to thank Lady Meiji at Saintis Mountain in Sunland, Erin recalled. He initially wanted to send me, but for some reason he sent my brother instead. I remember clearly that the night before my brother left, my father arranged a meal for us, got drunk, and cried bitterly, Erin said, tears streaming down her face as she spoke of these past events. After that, I didn't see my brother again. I was quickly sent abroad by my father, and he told me not to come back. Erin Murphy couldn't help but burst into tears when she talked about the past, and she felt much pain. Kiran didn't mention that Liam Murphy was killed by Lady Meiji's design, nor did he reveal that Aoki Kozner was related to the Murphy family. He knew there were still many things that needed to be clarified. Erin shared more, but nothing substantial or new. Finally, Kiran drove her back to the Murphy residence. After this incident, Erin's animosity towards Kiran diminished somewhat, especially knowing her father's death was suspicious. When Kiran and Yvonne returned to the villa, they were both exhausted. Kiran fell asleep on the sofa. Yvonne, sitting beside him, also wanted to sleep, but she noticed Kiran seemed to be slipping into one of those troubling dream states again. She stayed alert, ready to wake him if necessary. In his dream, Kiran felt like he was running endlessly on a snowy mountain, unable to find a way out. It was as if countless ropes were binding him, trying to drain his strength. Kiran felt intense fear and inexplicable sadness. Suddenly, a burst of red energy erupted from within him like a volcano. This energy broke through the bindings, and Kiran saw a dragon soaring into the sky. Feeling relieved, Kiran then heard Lady Meiji's voice. Kiran, your dragon soul's power is indeed strong. Her voice brought clarity to Kiran in his dream. He asked her, do you want this dragon soul's power? What do you think? Lady Meiji didn't deny it. I won't give it to you. I'm a Dragonlander. Even if I die, I won't let you succeed, Kiran declared. Lady Meiji laughed, her face twisted with a menacing look. Don't talk to me like that. Beware, I can make you regret it and wish for death. Kiran's face grew grim with anger. Just wait and count the days. In 1 month, if you don't come to Saintus Mountain, I will slowly drain your dragon soul's power, and you, Aoki Kozner, and her unborn child will die. Lady Meiji's voice echoed before fading. Kiran felt as though he had been through a violent storm, his body weak. He suddenly opened his eyes to see Yvonne looking at him with concern. Kiran tried to get up but found himself drained of energy. It seems she can't sleep with you now but still wants to harm you, Yvonne said, worried about Kiran. Kiran's face was filled with anger, his fists clenched tightly. She gave me a month or Aoki Kozner's life will be in danger. I think the one in real danger is you, Yvonne said, staring at Kiran. You have what she wants most. Aoki Kozner is just bait. Aoki Kozner won't die, but you might, a voice rang out as Sue Walton walked into the villa. Seeing Sue, Kiran sat up quickly. You're here. This is our third meeting. Do you want to be with me today? Sue asked playfully. Kiran shook his head vigorously. I absolutely won't be with you. Then I don't need to tell you the solution, Sue said, winking at Kiran and turning to leave. Kiran was left in a bind. He definitely wanted to know the solution. Chapter 894. Fine, Sue Walton, you win. Just tell me how to solve this, Kiran York said, looking at Sue. Sue lifted a hand to gently play with her hair, enhancing her mature and charming allure. With a soft gaze, she looked at Kiran and asked, What do you mean by this? Are you starting to like me? Kiran thought about how he had already slept with Aoki Kozner and, unable to be with any other woman now, it didn't matter anymore. With this realization, he boldly stood up and hugged Sue. So, what's going on? Sue laughed, wrapping her arms around Kiran's neck. I didn't expect the great Kiran York to use his charm to get information. Although Kiran felt embarrassed, he held Sue tightly, determined to get answers. Sue caressed Kiran's face gently and said, If you touch me, you'll be stuck with me for life. Don't regret it. Kiran couldn't care less now. He just wanted to find out Lady Meiji's identity and kill her. He tightened his hold on Sue. Seeing Kiran's determination, Sue smiled even more. Lady Meiji isn't exactly human. She's neither fully alive nor fully dead. Sue's words stunned both Kiran and Yvonne. Sue looked at Kiran and continued, She's not completely dead. She's a half-dead, half-alive person. Kiran was confused. Explain. Her soul is still around, but her body is gone. That's why she can only attack you in your dreams or control others to attack you. How do you know this? Kiran asked curiously. You are too close to the situation to see it clearly. Think about it. If she could really move, why didn't she keep you in Sunland last time? Sue's question made Kiran suddenly realize the truth. Sue's expression turned serious. There's a pagoda of nations in Sunland where she is enshrined. Pagoda of nations? Kiran and Yvonne exchanged a confused look. Sue nodded. Years ago, Sunland collected stones from famous mountains and rivers around the world to build the Pagoda of Nations. Kiran frowned. Sue's face became even more solemn and angry. They placed Dragonsland stones at the bottom, intending to symbolically keep Dragonsland suppressed forever, stifling our luck. Kiran's face filled with anger. This was even more infuriating than losing the Imperial Dragon Sword. Because these stones contained spiritual energy from their origins, Sunland feared they couldn't control it, so they enshrined Lady Meiji, a woman with mythical powers, to suppress it. How does enshrining her give her a soul? Kiran asked. Normally, it wouldn't. But Lady Meiji's soul has been hiding in Saintus Mountain, refusing to enter the cycle of reincarnation. By absorbing the spiritual energy from the stones, her soul has grown stronger. Sue explained. Kiran gasped, surprised. As Lady Meiji's power grew, her desire for more energy increased. So Sunland established temples in various countries to worship her, nourishing her soul continuously. They hope that by reviving her, Sunland will become even more powerful. When they obtained the Imperial Dragon Sword, their aim was to extract the dragon soul inside. But they couldn't, because the first master of Imperial Dragon, Axel Yanes, sealed it. Unable to unlock the sword's power, they enshrined it. You unintentionally gathered the dragon soul's power within yourself, making you her target. Sue's explanation left Kiran stunned. He hadn't expected this. How do you know all this? Yvonne asked Sue. Our Maui tribe's demon-suppressing stone is in the Pagoda of Nations. I once tried to retrieve it but failed, Sue said, her face solemn with a sense of responsibility. Yvonne's expression changed hearing about the demon-suppressing stone. In the Maui tribe's legends, the demon-suppressing stone could deter any demonic creatures. As the Maui saintess, Yvonne had never heard of it, only now learning that Sunland had stolen it. When I tried to retrieve it, I discovered their secret. I then infiltrated Cedric Brew's circle to uncover Kiran Mountain's secrets. Sue looked at Kiran. I planted the goo worm in you to verify my suspicions. Now I'm certain that Lady Meiji is a half-human, half-ghost entity. Destroying the Pagoda of Nations and removing the worship offerings will slow her growth. Finding and destroying her hidden soul at Saintess Mountain will kill her for good. Kiran's face showed determination. If that's the case, I'm confident I can destroy her. Sue nodded. You should be confident. She can't physically attack you. Kiran nodded, then asked, What about Aoki Kozner? Aoki Kozner is essentially a product of the interplay between yin and yang forces. She was born at the foot of Saintess Mountain, and because her father is Liam Murphy, she was born with a unique set of astrological signs and a destiny that naturally counteracts Lady Meiji, Sue Walton explained. Why hasn't Lady Meiji killed her then? Kiran asked. Are you pretending to be worried about Aoki Kozner just to play dumb? Sue teased, looking at Kiran. Kiran blushed, genuinely worried about Lady Meiji harming Aoki Kozner. You don't need to worry. If Lady Meiji could kill Aoki Kozner, she wouldn't be alive now, Sue said, snapping Kiran back to reality. Now that Aoki Kozner is your woman with your energy inside her, Lady Meiji can't kill her. Kiran was stunned. But Lady Meiji can still attack me? That's just an empty threat, Sue replied. Chapter 895. Are you saying Lady Meiji's deadline for me is just a bluff? Kiran York asked Sue Walton, his voice full of hope. It's not exactly a bluff. She will certainly try to find ways to kill Aoki Kozner and take your dragon soul's power, Sue explained, making Kiran frown slightly. The next 3 months will be a crucial period where both of you will be trying to outmaneuver each other. Whoever progresses faster will have the chance to kill the other, Sue continued as she stepped out of Kiran's embrace and looked at him seriously. In the next 3 months, you need to improve your abilities, find a way to destroy the Pagoda of Nations, and locate where Lady Meiji's soul is hidden in Saintess Mountain. Kiran nodded in agreement. Can we just blow up the Pagoda of Nations? Yvonne Quinn asked Sue. Sue shook her head. That's impossible. Otherwise, I would have done it already. Turning to Kiran, she added, If we can bring back the demon-suppressing stone and those stones from Dragonlander, it would be even better. Kiran didn't say anything but nodded, understanding the significance of Sue's words. Those stones carried the nation's hopes and pride. Thinking about it, Kiran felt a surge of determination. Don't worry. I will handle everything. To solve these issues, you first need to address the problems with Imperial Dragon, Sue continued, looking at Kiran. There are 9 dragon veins in the 9 provinces. You found 3, but you must locate the remaining 6. Kiran was shocked. How did Sue know about this? When you find the remaining 6 dragon veins, the dragon soul power within you will gradually consolidate and coexist with the 9 dragon veins. Then, you will truly become powerful, Sue explained. I'm only doing this to protect the dragon veins. Personal gain doesn't matter, Kiran said honestly. Finding the dragon veins is also protecting them. Isn't the goal to achieve harmony with the dragon veins? Sue replied. Kiran nodded in agreement. Where are the remaining 6 dragon veins? Yvonne asked Sue. That's not our concern. The Imperial Dragon knows where they are, Sue said, smiling meaningfully at Kiran. You can ask your fiancée, Lillian Yanis. She can help you. Kiran felt troubled hearing Lillian's name. He didn't want her caught in the conflict with Imperial Dragon. Despite forgiving them and not wanting to kill them, he still needed an explanation for the death of his family. I've told you everything I know. How will you thank me? Sue asked, smiling seductively at Kiran. Feeling grateful, Kiran reached out to hug Sue again. Don't bother with insincere gestures. I don't need them, Sue said, stepping back to avoid Kiran's embrace. I'm going to Sunland now. I'll help protect Aoki Kozner and investigate more about Lady Meiji, Sue announced. Kiran was stunned and filled with gratitude. I will keep my word, he called after her. Sue didn't respond, walking away gracefully. Kiran watched her leave, feeling a mix of emotions, gratitude and complexity. Yvonne approached and leaned against Kiran. Rest assured, every woman who loves you will be willing to do anything for you. Kiran felt warmth in his heart and a renewed sense of determination. He had been hesitant and fearful, but now he was filled with courage. Sensing Kiran's change, Yvonne smiled and gently hugged his arm. Kiran didn't know where the remaining dragon veins were, but he was confident he could find them. Just then, Kiran's phone rang. It was Lindsay Ludwig calling. "What's up, Lindsay?" Kiran answered. "My father just said that Park Sungnam from Stick Nation is bringing people to Dragonland to kill you." Lindsay's voice was filled with concern. Hearing this, Kiran thought of the hidden Stick Nation spy in the Ludwig family. He smiled. Perfect timing. I feel like killing someone. On the other end, Lindsay sighed, thinking, what a madman. She quickly regained her composure and said, "Don't be reckless. They're bringing many skilled fighters. I don't care who they are. If they come, I'll kill them," Kiran said confidently. "I'll keep you updated," Lindsay said, hanging up. Kiran didn't worry about Park Sungnam. His main enemy was Lady Meiji. He wanted to ask Lillian about the dragon veins, but decided against involving her. "Rest while the enemy hasn't arrived," Yvonne advised. Kiran nodded, feeling exhausted. He lay down with his head on Yvonne's lap and fell asleep. Knowing more about Lady Meiji made him calmer, and he slept peacefully. Meanwhile, Park Sungnam was in a video conference with people from the Star-Spangled Banner Nation, Romance Nation, and Sunland. Park Sungnam, full of pride, said to Kanta Yasuda, "I'm in Dragon's Land with our best fighters. We'll kill Kiran York this time." Despite despising Park, Kanta Yasuda pretended to be pleased. "I believe Kiran York will meet a terrible end this time." Elton from the Romance Nation added, "Make sure to take plenty of photos and videos. I want to enjoy it." Thinking of the spy Kiran had killed in the Carter family, Elton was furious. Davis from the Star-Spangled Banner Nation remained calm. After a moment of thought, he said, "I'm worried you won't be able to kill Kiran York." Davis's words felt like a slap to Park's face, making him furious. Kanta Yasuda smiled, anticipating Park's anger. Chapter 896. Are you doubting my abilities? Park Sungnam felt deeply insulted. No, we are not doubting your abilities," Davis quickly responded. Park Sungnam felt much better and confidently said, "As long as you know my strength, killing Kiran York this time will be a piece of cake." "You got it wrong. I genuinely believe in your ability to fail at killing Kiran York." Davis's explanation hit like a bucket of cold water. Davis's words were like a slap in the face for Park Sungnam, making him feel utterly humiliated. "You are simply too much," he shouted angrily at Davis and the others. "I don't think Davis is wrong. It will be very difficult," Kanta Yasuda said with a mocking tone. "Our Sunland Ninja Association is much stronger than you, and even so, many of our people failed to kill Kiran York. You people from Sunland are useless." "We are not," Park Sungnam retorted angrily. Kanta Yasuda remained calm and said, "Getting angry at us won't help. We are just kindly reminding you, hoping you won't suffer." Elton chimed in, laughing. "Of course, we all hope you can kill Kiran York, but the fact is he is very strong." Park Sungnam was deeply shaken and coldly replied, "Since you all think I can't kill Kiran York, you might as well figure it out yourselves. This has nothing to do with me." "Park Sungnam, don't forget we are a team, and it was decided by lot that your Stick Nation would take the lead this time," Davis reminded him icily. Park Sungnam bit his lip, holding back his words. "The reason we are telling you this is to remind you not to be too direct or impulsive in your confrontation with Kiran York," Davis added. "Is there anything else? If not, let's end this meeting," Park Sungnam said angrily. "I'm done," Kanta Yasuda said with a smile. "So am I," Elton added, equally pleased. "Park Sungnam, remember to stay calm and don't be impulsive. Kiran York is a formidable opponent," Davis cautioned. Park Sungnam abruptly ended the video call, feeling humiliated. "I will make you regret underestimating Stick Nation's strength," Park Sungnam said, clenching his fists, filled with a desire to kill Kiran York immediately. He didn't realize that he had fallen into a trap. Davis and Kanta Yasuda's words were meant to provoke him into recklessly confronting Kiran York. Park Sungnam, indeed, fell for it. After a moment of hesitation, he made a call, and soon a tall, muscular man entered the room. "Master Kim, many people think we can't kill Kiran York. What do you think?" Park Sungnam asked the man named Kim Jongtae. Kim Jongtae, the head of the Xuan medical sect from Stick Nation, was renowned for combining martial arts and medicine. His disciples were widespread, and many famous taekwondo dojos in Stick Nation were part of his enterprise. Hearing Park Sungnam's question, Kim Jongtae felt insulted. His face darkened and his eyes flashed coldly. "We haven't even started and you're already doubting our strength." Park Sungnam, pleased with Kim's reaction, pretended to be angry. "Those Sunland fools like Kanta Yasuda keep saying we can't kill Kiran York, claiming he's too strong. That's because the Sunland Ninja Association is weak. Many of them were defeated by Kiran York alone," Kim Jong-tae said mockingly, clearly looking down on the Sunland Ninja Association. Master Kim, should we challenge Kiran York openly or use other methods to kill him? Park Sung-nam asked. Kim Jong-tae pondered for a moment before replying, I'll challenge Kiran York first. If I kill him, it's over. Park Sung-nam pretended to be concerned. Are you sure it's safe? Kim Jong-tae, feeling insulted by the question, angrily replied, Why not? We can't lose our courage because of others' words. He placed his hand on the table, and with a crunch, the teacup shattered into pieces. The spilled tea moved towards his hand as if pulled by an invisible force. Seeing this, Park Sung-nam was thrilled. With Master Kim, I'm confident. Kim Jong-tae didn't respond but lifted his hand, revealing 5 clear fingerprints on the table. Park Sung-nam felt fully assured. Let's go to the Ludwig family and kill Finn Ludwig and his wife. Kim Jong-tae agreed and set off for Finn Ludwig's villa to kill Kiran York. Meanwhile, Kiran York had just woken up. Yvonne Quinn gently stroked his face, filled with love. Did you rest well? Kiran nodded. Yes, I did. My sister just called, inviting us home for dinner. Do you want to go? Yvonne asked. Kiran agreed, thinking about Mrs. Ludwig's need for a medicine change. He and Yvonne headed to Lindsay Ludwig's house, unaware that Kim Jong-tae was also on his way there, setting the stage for an unexpected encounter. Chapter 897. At Finn Ludwig's house, Lindsay was overjoyed to hear that Kiran would be coming for dinner that evening. She decided to cook a sumptuous meal herself, something she had recently learned. Though it was laborious, she did it with great care. Finn noticed how meticulous his daughter was in preparing the meal and realized she had feelings for Kiran. What exactly is the relationship between Kiran and your sister? Finn asked his elder daughter. Lindsay blushed at her father's question and coyly replied, How would I know about their relationship? Kiran is indeed an outstanding man, and such an outstanding man is bound to have many women around him, Finn said, giving his daughter an excuse. Lindsay understood her father's implication, which was his indirect approval of her relationship with Kiran. Lindsay felt much more at ease. However, she quickly became a bit melancholic and said, Kiran's favorite is Snowxander. Other than Snow, he hasn't been moved by any other woman. Reflecting on her time with Kiran, Lindsay felt complicated emotions, knowing that even her efforts to seduce him hadn't swayed his heart. I don't understand you young people's matters, but the only thing I know is that love requires boldness, or it will never belong to you, Finn advised his daughter meaningfully. Lindsay blushed even more, remained silent, and nodded in agreement. I'm going to check on your mother. You continue with your preparations, Finn said as he turned to leave, intending to check on his ailing wife. As soon as he reached the bedroom door, a wave of intense killing intent swept over him, chilling him to the bone. Who's there? Finn shouted in fear, rushing into the room. Pushing the door open, he saw Kim Jong-tae standing by the window, looking out with his back to the door. Just the sight of the back made Finn turn pale with fear. There were no guards at the Ludwig house now, and the fact that someone could appear suddenly in the bedroom was terrifying. He quickly looked at his wife on the bed, finding her lying there motionless. His heart sank, and he asked excitedly, Did you kill my wife? Finn stared at Kim Jong-tae's back, angrily questioning as he ran over. People like you are too insignificant for me to bother with. Killing her would be no different than squashing an ant, Kim Jong-tae said coldly with disdain. Hearing this, Finn breathed a sigh of relief. He calmed down and focused his gaze on Kim Jong-tae's back, asking, Are you from Stick Nation? I came here to avenge Lloyd Mo and the others, Kim Jong-tae indirectly confirmed. When Finn heard it was to avenge his traitorous butler Lloyd Mo, he knew the intruder was from Stick Nation. His face turned cold as he stared at Kim Jong-tae's back, saying, Go back and tell Park Sung-nam that they broke their promise. They planted a mole during our cooperation and betrayed me first. Your grievances are none of my concern. I just want to know where Kiran York is, Kim Jong-tae said. I don't know. Leave now or I'll call the police, Finn said, trying to stop Kim Jong-tae, fearing Kiran wouldn't be able to handle him. I don't want to waste words or time, Kim Jong-tae replied, turning slowly to face Finn. Call Kiran and have him at the villa within 10 minutes or else. Kim Jong-tae left the threat unfinished as he lightly brushed his hand across the marble windowsill. Crack! The marble windowsill shattered like it had been struck with a hammer, instantly covered in spiderweb-like cracks. Seeing this, Finn's mind went blank, overwhelmed by the display of strength. Crash! The marble windowsill crumbled into powder, falling to the ground. Finn gasped, his eyes filled with fear. Kim Jong-tae's face remained calm as he looked at Finn, saying, I may disdain small people like you, but I don't want to waste time either. His gaze first fell on Finn's wife, Maxine Danes, on the bed, implying that he would kill her if Kiran didn't come. Finn was furious and shouted, "Go back and tell Park Sungnam that I no longer care about life and death. Kill me if you want." Worried that Park had brought many people to kill Kiran, Finn didn't want Kiran to come, fearing for his safety. Lindsay, hearing the commotion downstairs, hurriedly ran up. Seeing Kim Jong-tae and the shattered windowsill, her face turned pale and her eyes widened. Kim Jong-tae's gaze swept over Lindsay, showing a hint of delight, as if discovering a treasure. "This woman is beautiful. I like her," he said. Finn couldn't believe Kim Jong-tae was a lecher. He shook with rage. Lindsay was furious, thinking, "What a toad, lusting after swan meat. Doesn't he know I'm Kiran's woman?" Expecting Kiran to arrive soon, Lindsay felt confident and said to Kim Jong-tae, "I'm Kiran York's wife. Try to touch me if you dare." Finn instinctively glared at his daughter, afraid of provoking Kim Jong-tae. Hearing Lindsay claim to be Kiran's wife, Kim Jong-tae laughed. "Finn, call Kiran over now, or I'll play with his wife." Kim Jong-tae walked towards Lindsay with a lecherous smile, completely lacking the demeanor of a master. "You beast!" Finn shouted angrily, trying to stop Kim Jong-tae. With a light wave of his hand, Kim Jong-tae sent Finn flying like a kite lost in a storm, crashing onto the bed. Without looking back, Kim Jong-tae continued towards Lindsay. "You pervert! If you touch me, Kiran will kill you," Lindsay shouted as she ran. Seeing Lindsay running, Kim Jong-tae didn't hurry, slowly following her. In her haste, Lindsay missed a step on the stairs, tumbling down. "Ah!" Lindsay screamed in fear, feeling pathetic. As she landed on the first floor, she tried to get up, only to find Kim Jong-tae standing before her as if he had descended from the sky. Rubbing her sore arm and swollen ankle, Lindsay looked up in terror. "Kiran is as good as dead. You'll have no man to accompany you, so be with me," Kim Jong-tae said, gazing at Lindsay's mature beauty, truly captivated. Looking at Lindsay, he felt her mature charm, like a gentle spring breeze lingering, making him feel rejuvenated. Unable to resist, Kim Jong-tae reached out to touch Lindsay's face. Lindsay was terrified, backing away while shouting, "If you dare touch me, Kiran will kill you." "In my eyes, Kiran is already dead," Kim Jong-tae said arrogantly, continuing to reach for Lindsay. Lindsay was at a loss. "Touch her and you die!" Kiran's icy voice came from behind Kim Jong-tae. Chapter 898. Kim Jong-tae's hand stopped mid-air, his eyes revealing a chilling gleam. The Stick Nation's mission to kill Kiran was mocked by people from 3 other countries, especially by Kanta Yasuda from Sunland, which was extremely humiliating for Kim Jong-tae. Why did Sunland people look down on Stick Nation people? Weren't their ninjas just trash? Now he had volunteered to kill Kiran York, but unexpectedly, Kiran's first words upon meeting him were a threat, further stimulating his sense of humiliation. Kim Jong-tae slowly turned, his sharp gaze locking onto Kiran. Kiran looked at Kim Jong-tae's tall, fat body, a sneer of disdain curling his lips. "You're courting death without knowing it. You are Kiran York." Kim Jong-tae's voice was icy like winter's cold water. Seeing Kiran, Lindsay Ludwig relaxed completely, sitting down on the ground with a thud. Kiran noticed Lindsay's right ankle swollen like a bun and her arms covered in abrasions. His heart ached, and his gaze at Kim Jong-tae turned even colder. "Park Sungnam sent you." "Yes, I am here to kill you." Kim Jong-tae stood arrogantly with his hands behind his back, completely disregarding Kiran. Kiran didn't mind and asked calmly, "Do you have any last words?" Kiran laughed coldly. "This might be your last chance to speak in this world. I want to say you must die." Kim Jong-tae was enraged, stomping hard with both feet. The marble floor shattered into countless pieces once again. "Kiran, be careful!" "His palms are also very powerful," Finn shouted from upstairs, rubbing his sore back. Kiran's gaze fixed on Kim Jong-tae's face. "So, you're considered a top expert in Stick Nation." He trailed off, shaking his head with infinite disdain. "What do you mean?" Kim Jong-tae asked angrily. "Stick Nation is so pathetic," Kiran said as his right palm swung towards Kim Jong-tae. "You are the pathetic one." Kim Jong-tae fumed with rage, his fist swinging towards Kiran's temples. Slap! Kiran stood still, his palm striking Kim Jong-tae's right cheek with a resounding slap. Kim Jong-tae's fierce attack halted just as his fists were about to hit Kiran's temples, his arms dropping as if suddenly drained of all strength. His entire body seemed to be emptied, swaying twice before slowly collapsing to the ground. Kiran grabbed Kim Jong-tae's clothes, pulling him up with a loud thud. There are always idiots, just more this year. Dragging Kim Jong-tae with his feet scraping the ground, Kiran headed outside. Kim Jong-tae was conscious but completely powerless, like a discarded ragdoll. Kiran dragged Kim Jong-tae to the Ludwig Villa's gate and hung him on the doorframe. Kim Jong-tae hung limply, looking like a puppet. The Ludwig Villa was in a quiet area of the estate, so usually there were no people around. Kim Jong-tae hanging there resembled a hanging ghost. Kim Jong-tae never imagined that a so-called expert like himself couldn't withstand a single slap from Kiran. He used to look down on the Ninja Association, but now he realized that even if he brought the entire Stick Nation martial arts school, it would only add more useless fools. He felt humiliated and angry but helpless, swaying in the night wind like a candle in the wind. He knew he was now a cripple, unable to stand again. Kiran turned and went back to the villa. Yvonne had already helped Lindsay to the sofa. Finn's lower back was still sore, but he was relieved, looking at Kiran with admiration. Kiran walked to Finn and silently patted his back. Finn felt the pain vanish, his back straightening. Delighted, he said, "Thank you. Call Park Sung-nam and tell him to come collect Kim Jong-tae," Kiran instructed expressionlessly. "Park Sung-nam brought many experts this time, will it?" Finn asked, worried, looking at Kiran. Kiran pointed to Kim Jong-tae hanging at the gate. Trash like him is the same no matter how many. Finn was stunned, remembering the shattered windowsill upstairs and the marble floor fragments in the living room. How could such a powerful Kim Jong-tae be considered trash? It was because Kiran was too strong. To Kiran, everyone else was weak trash, including Kim Jong-tae. Finn thought this and admired Kiran even more, nodding quickly to call Park Sung-nam. Kiran had already walked to the sofa, looking down at Lindsay's swollen ankle. Despite the pain, Lindsay's face was rosy, looking enchanting. Yvonne understood and stepped aside, leaving Kiran and Lindsay alone. Lindsay naturally remembered the sensation of silver needles in her foot, her heart fluttering, her fair foot retracting slightly, looking even more shy and enchanting. Kiran glanced at Lindsay's foot, inwardly shaken by how captivating it was. Men who liked feet would go crazy over them. However, he had no interest in them. Instead, he smiled at Lindsay and said, "Is there pig's trotters for dinner tonight?" Lindsay didn't expect Kiran to joke at this moment. Both embarrassed and annoyed, she grabbed a pillow and threw it at him. "You damned rogue!" Kiran caught the pillow and shook it gently. "I'm a rogue, right?" Lindsay nodded vigorously. "Yes, you're a rogue. A rogue is like this," Kiran said, pressing the pillow on Lindsay's face. Lindsay screamed, thinking Kiran was going to kill her, focusing on the pillow. Kiran had already grabbed her sprained right ankle, gently resetting it with a crack. "Ah!" Lindsay was about to scream when the pillow blocked her mouth, muffling the sound. Lindsay felt a strange sensation. Though it was heavy and oppressive, it was also delightful. She felt like she was flying. Kiran removed the pillow, looking at Lindsay's face. She was stunned. Her already blushing face was now red like paper, alluring and charming. Kiran's mind buzzed, thinking, "Does this woman like it rough?" Lindsay tried to move but found her body limp like noodles. She buried her face in the pillow, not wanting to look at Kiran again. Suppressing his shock, Kiran began treating the bruises on her arm. Compared to resetting her ankle, this gentle care made Lindsay feel as if she had flown to the heavens and then returned to earth. Kiran's tender care gave Lindsay a new experience. In just a moment, Kiran's treatment of her foot made her feel like she had gone through heaven and hell. Yvonne watched, smiling. Finn came downstairs telling Kiran, "Park Sung-nam is furious. He said he's bringing people to kill you." Kiran, as if not hearing, stood up smiling. "Let's eat, I'm hungry." Finn was shocked by Kiran's calmness. Lindsay lay there, embarrassed. She couldn't get up. Chapter 899. Outside the Ludwig family villa, a large table was set up. Kiran York, Lindsay Ludwig, Yvonne Quinn, Finn Ludwig, and his injured wife, Maxine Danes, sat around it. With the sumptuous dinner on the table, the five of them were like a happy family. Finn looked at Kiran, then at his two daughters, with a smile on his face. He eagerly hoped that both of his daughters could be with Kiran, which he considered the ideal outcome. Maxine, however, wore a worried expression. She was deeply concerned that her daughters were caught in the throes of love, destined to suffer heartbreak. After all, she had once loved Kiran's father, Titus York, deeply, but it had ended in vain. "Have a crab, it'll give you some strength." Kiran picked up a crab and placed it on Lindsay's plate, glancing at her feet with a playful smile as if to say, "You are what you eat." Lindsay blushed at the memory of being carried by Kiran and shyly glared at him. "I don't want it," she pouted. "Great, more for me," Kiran said, reclaiming the crab and devouring it with relish. Lindsay fumed as Kiran ignored her, feeling even more annoyed. Beside her, Yvonne ate elegantly in small bites, contrasting Lindsay's more animated demeanor. Finn occasionally glanced toward the villa's entrance, uncertain when Park Sungnam would arrive. The five of them continued their meal, each lost in their own thoughts. Halfway through the meal, Kiran put down his chopsticks abruptly. "This food is awful," he declared. Lindsay, who was drinking juice, nearly choked, spraying juice from her mouth. Coughing violently, she covered her mouth. Yvonne, smiling at Kiran, said, "You like my sister, don't you? Why do you keep teasing her?" Finn and Maxine chuckled, watching Kiran. Lindsay, too, thought Kiran liked her, and feeling both shy and annoyed, she snapped, "There's nothing between us. Kiran and I are just friends, totally innocent." Kiran finished for her. Lindsay's face turned pale with embarrassment. Kiran's blunt statement, made in front of her parents, felt like a public rejection, deeply wounding her pride and breaking her heart. Turning to Finn and Maxine, Kiran said, "You should find a suitable husband for Lindsay and get her married soon." Finn and Maxine were stunned, thinking Kiran was joking. Lindsay sat frozen, trembling with anger, her disappointment crashing over her like waves. Yvonne sensed Kiran's intent. He didn't want to drag Lindsay into his dangerous world, especially with the powerful Lady Meiji targeting him. By being harsh, he hoped to sever their ties, sparing her future pain. However, Lindsay, unaware of his true intentions, felt only sorrow and bitterness. "Who do you think you are, meddling in my life?" Lindsay yelled at Kiran. Without replying, Kiran stood up. Lindsay, in a fit of rage, threw her bowl to the ground. "Kiran, whether I live or die is none of your business," she shouted, standing up. Kiran walked towards the door, each step widening the emotional gap between them. The regret in his heart turned to resolve, his eyes growing colder with each step. He didn't want the woman he loved to be hurt, which is why he was so determined to push her away. As he reached the door, it burst open with a loud crash. Finn and the others jumped up, staring towards the entrance. 7 or 8 cars pulled into the yard, and dozens of people got out, led by a cold, sinister young man in his 30s. The others stood respectfully behind him, exuding an aura of deadly intent. The young man noticed Kim Jong-tae hanging on the villa's wall. With a nod to one of his men, he said, "Send him on his way." "Yes!" The man leaped towards Kim Jong-tae, who, though immobilized, was fully conscious. Hearing Park Sungnam's order, he glared at him, cursing, "Park Sungnam, you monster!" Ignoring him, Park Sungnam turned his sharp gaze to Kiran. As the attacker neared Kim Jong-tae, a silver light shot from Kiran's hand. The man screamed, clutching his throat as he fell to the ground, bleeding and dying. The sudden display of Kiran's lethal skill shocked everyone. Even though the attacker wasn't the strongest, he wasn't weak either, yet Kiran had killed him with a single move. Those around Park Sungnam felt their confidence waver. They looked at Kim Jong-tae and realized that he was already a cripple. And now, another one was dead. Furious at the shift in the atmosphere, Park Sungnam glared at Kiran. "Do you have a death wish, attacking my men like that?" he snarled. Kiran met his gaze coldly. "From now on, each of your men will cost you 10 billion to live." "What do you mean?" Park Sungnam asked icily. "If they want to live, they must pay 10 billion. Otherwise." Kiran pointed to the dead man on the ground. Park Sungnam's face darkened. "Do you really think I'll pay you? It's not about whether you'll pay. If they want to live, they must pay," Kiran said, stepping forward. Enraged, Park Sungnam shouted to his men, "Kill him!" Though fearful of Kiran, the men charged at him, hoping their numbers would overwhelm him. "You're too arrogant." "Die!" one yelled, swinging his fist at Kiran. Without looking, Kiran kicked him in the head, sending it flying. The scene was too shocking. The scene was too brutal. The scene was too domineering. It stunned everyone. The would-be attackers froze in place, shocked by Kiran's power. "Money or life?" Kiran's cold voice echoed. Chapter 900. Cold interrogation, instant kill, ruthless indifference. Kiran York had turned the scene into a living hell. The previously arrogant Park Sungnam and his men lost their momentum instantly. Those standing around were caught in a dilemma, unable to advance or retreat, feeling thoroughly embarrassed. Park Sungnam hadn't anticipated Kiran killing one of his men with a single kick. His rage ignited as he turned to his subordinates and shouted, "Kill Kiran York and I will reward you with 10 billion. The hesitant subordinates, upon hearing this, were once again tempted. Kiran, however, scoffed at them. 10 billion? Even if I offered you 100 billion, do you think? You'd live long enough to spend it? This simple yet terrifying statement made everyone take a sharp breath, their eyes filled with doubt and confusion. Seeing his men falter, Park Sungnam became even more enraged. "What are you thinking?" "Attack him now!" he yelled, urging them on, but only making them more hesitant. Who dares? Kiran's cold and domineering voice swept over them. Instead of advancing, everyone took a step back, leaving Park Sungnam isolated. This public humiliation made Park Sungnam feel even more disgraced, as if he were being tossed. Around by the wind, Kiran slowly walked toward him. Park Sungnam, full of fury, glared at Kiran and said, "You think you can intimidate us?" Smack! Kiran's hands struck him across the face. "What are you now?" "Nothing." Park Sungnam spat out a mouthful of blood mixed with teeth. Kiran sneered. "You brought your so-called experts to kill me?" Smack! Kiran backhanded him again. Humiliated and enraged, Park Sungnam's eyes burned with anger as he glared at Kiran, but he dared not speak. The overwhelming power Kiran exhibited made it hard for him to breathe. "Give me 100 billion to spare your men's lives," Kiran said, staring at him with a blank expression. "In your dreams, I won't give you 100 billion, Park Sungnam shouted angrily. Without a word, Kiran raised his hand, a silver needle flying out and hitting one of Park Sungnam's men square in the forehead. The man cried out in pain as blood began to pour from his forehead like a fountain. Another subordinate died just like the first, his eyes wide in shock. The remaining men were petrified, unable to believe Kiran's ruthlessness. Kiran, unfazed, looked at Park Sungnam. 200 billion to spare their lives. Park Sungnam shuddered, realizing that each kill increased the ransom by 100 billion. "Are you refusing?" Kiran asked, raising his hand again. Another one of Park Sungnam's men fell dead with a cry. With 3 men now dead, Park Sungnam's entourage was completely terrified. Even Park Sungnam himself trembled as he faced Kiran. 300 billion. Is it their lives or yours? Kiran's icy gaze bore into Park Sungnam. The remaining men, their faces pale with fear, began to plead with Park Sungnam. "Give him the money. Save us." Terrified of death, they all urged him, their voices trembling with fear. "You're too arrogant, too ruthless," Park Sungnam shouted, pained by the thought of 300 billion. Kiran ignored him, addressing his subordinates. "Is Park Sungnam's money more important, or are your lives? Decide now." Kiran stood with his hands behind his back, watching them. At that moment, Park Sungnam's men were utterly terrified. No one wanted to die, especially facing someone as formidable as Kiran, where their lives were as fragile as paper. "Park Sungnam, give him the money. If you want to die, do it yourself. Don't drag us down with you. If you don't pay to save us, don't blame us for what happens next." Faced with death, Park Sungnam was abandoned by his men. He stood there, humiliated and furious, as if he were the enemy of everyone. Watching this, Finn admired Kiran's tactics. His martial prowess, clever strategy, and ease of execution were impressive. This move had shaken Park Sungnam's foundation in his home country. If he paid, he might save his men, but they wouldn't be grateful. If he didn't pay, he would make enemies of them all. Kiran was not just controlling their lives, but the future of Park Sungnam's family and Stick Nation. Park Sungnam's clenched fists and fiery gaze showed his rage, but he knew he was weak compared to Kiran. The scene fell silent, the air thick with the smell of blood, making the atmosphere even more oppressive. "Lindsay, start the countdown. Every 10 seconds someone will die," Kiran said, turning to her. "Okay," Lindsay replied, pulling out her phone and starting the timer. Park Sungnam's men panicked. They didn't want to be the next to die, and one of them grabbed Park Sungnam, shouting, "Give him the money!" "Let go of me, you want to die?" Park Sungnam shouted back. The man, terrified, slapped Park Sungnam. "If you want to die, go ahead, but don't drag us with you." This set off the others, who began to attack Park Sungnam, shouting and hitting him. Park Sungnam, now in despair, couldn't get a word out. 10 seconds are up," Lindsay called to Kiran. "Who wants to die next?" Kiran asked, looking at the men. Park Sungnam and his men shivered, stopping their assault. "Let Kim Jong-tae die next," Kiran said, kicking off the ground and flying towards him. Everyone watched in shock as Kiran grabbed Kim Jong-tae. Though immobilized, Kim Jong-tae heard everything clearly and was filled with terror. However, it was too late. With a loud crash, Kiran slammed him to the ground. Kim Jong-tae's body crumpled, blood and flesh scattering, a gruesome sight. To Park Sungnam, it was as if he were staring at the Grim Reaper.